Hello, the doc is in, and welcome back to another chapter of Tokyo Revengers 277. At last. Not the last chapter, but as we'll find out, the second to last. We're almost at the end of this journey. This chapter, I'm not going to say I called it, but I'm going to say I called it. Anyway, last chapter, basically, we see Takemichi has gone further back in time, back all the way to the point where everybody's alive. Everybody's a kid now, well, at this time, and he crosses paths with Mikey, and it seems like Mikey recognizes him. And that's pretty much it for the last chapter. So this chapter begins. We have Mikey and Takemichi being like, oh, you're that Takemichi kid. And Mikey's like, and Takemichi's like, you're that Mikey guy. And so then basically they both acknowledge, like, we both leaped back in time. And we have Shichiro, Baji, Sanzu, and Emma off to the side, like, I don't know what they're talking about, but okay. And so then they run off and they kind of like talk about what they thought happened. And Mikey's like, oh, I really wanted to go back in time and change things. And Takemichi at the time was like, oh, I thought I was giving you the powers as I was about to die, and etc, etc. But basically, they're running off, mad excited, and they're basically saying, like, this is a miracle, like, this is great. And so they end up on top of this building, right? And so they're talking. As they're talking, they're basically trying to decide, like, what are we gonna do now? And Takemichi's like, oh, well, I've always been fighting this battle alone. I question that statement, but we're gonna touch on that in just a moment. He says, I always been fighting on my own, but now I have you. And so they're like, we'll just fix this all together. So I was confused on what they meant by this. I was like, okay, where's this gonna go exactly? And well, you'll see in just a moment. All right, so they're like, this is our revenge. I'm like, okay, cool, fine, good panel drawn wise, I like it, cool. Like I said, I have a bunch of thoughts about this, but right from there on, they kind of did we get a little montage, and it says, from that day on, Mikey and I, referring to Takemichi, kept on running. And so we get a little bit of explanation of, like, to give an idea what's about to happen. All right, so we're at the moment of the gang, Tokyo Manji gang, being created, right? The gang says there will be 7 initial members. That is everybody from the initial. So that's Mikey, Draken, Mitsuya, Kazutura, and Pa, and Baji. I don't know if I already said Baji, but and Baji. And then the additional member is Takemichi. I'm like, okay, interesting. Then Takemichi says, let me bring a friend. Friend's name is Kisaki Tata. We all know the guy. And so I'm like, okay, interesting. Then Mikey says, I'm gonna bring a guy too. And now Sanzu's here. What? And we just cut away. It's like, okay, the initial gang is now including Takemichi, Kisaki, and Sanzu. Alrighty. Then, cut ahead. Now it's Mikey's birthday. What happens? We got Kazutura and Baji being like, oh my god, a CB250, the exact bike Mikey wanted, and now he's gifting it. Ergo meaning Shinichiro hasn't died. And what? And so then, again, we continue further. And so we get like a little rundown of everybody. It's like, oh, we saved everyone. Everyone who died, saved. And we have Mikey leading this new version of the Tokyo Manji gang. He says, all these gangs, you guys all belong to me now. So that refers to the Black Dragons run by Taiju and Izana's gang, Tenjuku, right? And basically they're just like, well, Mikey says, we've conquered the whole country, which basically they have. I mean, the 2 other biggest gangs that are very notorious and dangerous now belong to him. So yeah, that's cool, right? And so you get another really good panel and of Takemichi and Mikey crying. They're like, it's finally over, right? Great. And then we get a rundown of the entire gang, all the members, right? And we're talking about literally everyone. We got Takemichi as the president, Mikey as the leader, Vice President Draken, Kisaki, Baji, Hanma, Chifuyu as staff officers, 2nd Division led by Mitsuya, Vice Captain Hakai, We got Pohnpei, 3rd Division. We have 4th Division led by Katsura. We have 5th Division with a captain of Sanzu, vice captain of Senju. We have the Kawada brothers as the 6th Division. We have 7th Division as Taiju and his co-captains, co-vice captains of Inu and Koko. And then we got 8th Division led by Izana, vice captain as Kikucho. Then we have the rest of his gang, the main members, etc. Right? And so from there, we just get like a quick thing of like, oh, that was the whole gang when it was at its peak, and then the gang is disbanded by Mikey. And then the last page is we cut 11 years later, July 3rd, 2017. We see a little church area, see a little bell ringing, and that is the end of the chapter. And the last chapter is the next one. So next week, that is it. We're done. So, chapter. I like the chapter. I'm not gonna lie. It's a good chapter. But one, shit went hella fast. I'm not even gonna cap with you. Like, so many, like, literally 11 years later. So we're saying literally the entire, from little children, before the gang even existed, all the way through everything till they're adults now. And I'm not saying it's not bad, but there's a couple of interesting choices taken in this chapter that I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, what's the explanation here? First off, Takemichi and Kisaki are friends, apparently. That to the point where Takemichi just invites Kisaki into the gang. Now, I don't know how this gets rid of the jealousy thing, or like maybe they had to talk about things. I don't know, but somehow now he's a part of the gang and he's chill. I don't know. Sanzu joined the gang, that just made sense. Sanzu was always Mikey's friend. It makes more sense to say that Sanzu and Mikey were in the gang together to begin with anyway, right? That's cool. Another thing I had a problem with, the whole part with Takemichi basically saying, oh, I've always been fighting alone. Chifuyu begs to differ. The levels of disrespect that had to be put on Chifuyu's name for him to have gone out of his way to say, I'm supporting you in the time leaping, for Takemichi to then say, I've always been fighting alone, man. It's like, what? Chifuyu's had your back forever. This whole time, he was your vice president when you were running Tomen 2. He was the one who initially came with you to create the new game to begin with. So for you to like basically shade the hell out of him and basically be like, oh, I've always been fighting alone. It's like, damn. When did this story become Takemichi and Mikey? This has not always been a Takemichi Mikey thing. Obviously, you know, that's kind of been like the indirect connection. It's like Takemichi is fighting against this gang of Tomen. Tomen's led by Mikey, and so it's like, in a sense, they're going head to head. And then, you know, there's a lot of connections, and then like, you know, all the really bad timelines always happen where Mikey falls down a dark path. So like, to save Mikey is to kind of save Tomen from going down a dark path, and therefore save Hina and all that stuff, right? But on the other hand, I'm like, this is kind of crazy. Like I said, I don't mind the idea of like, oh, in the end, the best way to like solve everything was that they just stay in the past and just fix everything. No time leaping, just live their life. Which, again, it seems to have worked. And again, I have no problems with that. Logically, that just makes sense. But on the other hand, I'm like, so much shit just happens. Like, I feel like my main problems are like the two things I mentioned. Like, just those two plot aspects don't make sense to me. The Takemichi thing feels like a huge oversight, like just straight up disrespectful. The Kisaki thing, I mean, you could just say, oh, Takemichi eventually talks to Kisaki, he makes friends with him, and they end up being cool or something. Or maybe they handle the issues involving Hina later on or something. And, I mean, to be fair, we don't know who was getting married. So maybe Kisaki just ends up winning over Hina in the end, and, you know, Takemichi just takes the L. That's like the sad part of the story. In the end, to save everybody and get all his friends and all these people around and save everybody, he had to sacrifice, like, going with the girl. But I don't even think that's gonna happen, just because literally everything else in this chapter is so, like, perfectly placed. Like, everybody's happy, everybody's cool. Literally, Taiju and Hakai are in the same game. They're in the same game. Why is this important? Because Taiju's abusive, and his siblings, after he's defeated, basically separate from them. In a sense, I don't know if that they like completely like never speak to him again, as we see in the Tomen 2 version of history. You know, when Taiju's like mortally wounded and everything, like Hakai helps him back to his feet while they're in the same gang. So maybe, you know, in a sense, after his defeat, they're cool or something, or to some effect they are. But I'm just like, so much stuff happens. It's so much. It's just a lot. Maybe it's just a matter of digesting, but this chapter feels like a lot of shit just happens, and we're supposed to just be like, okay, I guess that makes sense. Like, everybody joined, like, Izana wanted to kill Mikey. Now we say Shinchiro's alive, so maybe that fixes their relationship. Like, shouldn't Tenjuku not exist because Izana had Shinichiro still, and maybe they could have met and all that stuff? I don't know. Like I said, a lot of shit just happened, and we're just supposed to accept it, and I'm fine accepting it. I'm just saying a lot of shit just happens, and I don't know how I feel about it just yet. So maybe this last chapter, you know, I'll see the sweet ending, and I'll cry a little, and I'll say everything else is fine. But for right now, I'm like, that was a lot. That was a lot. But outside of that, overall, good chapter. And yeah, I guess I'll close this out. Leave a like if you like, leave a dislike if you dislike. Comment how you feel about the chapter. How do you feel? Do you have any problems with the chapter? Do you like it? Think something should have changed? Think we maybe should have gotten this like 2 extra long chapters for like the end or something? Oh, don't even get me started about Hama. Hama is serving no relevance at all, and that just being the end. That the Hama part of the story is just over. Don't even get me started with that. But yeah, just leave your comments about how you feel about this chapter. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see me review the last chapter of Tokyo Revengers next week. Stay around if you want to continue seeing videos like these on other series. Feel free to subscribe. With that all being said, thank you again for watching this video up to this point, and the doc is out. Peace.